There is one sentence that cuts deeper than any insult, deeper than mockery, deeper than open hatred, because it does not come from emotion. It does not come from loss of control. It comes from intention. And if you have ever heard this sentence directed at you, you were not dealing with someone who snapped. You were standing in front of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Carl Jung spent his life studying what lies beneath the human mask, beneath politeness, beneath morality, beneath the carefully constructed personas we use to function in society. What he discovered was unsettling. He found that certain words do not merely express feeling. They expose psychological structure. They reveal the state of a person's inner world. And sometimes, they reveal something so dark that once you recognize it, you can never see that person the same way again. Before the sentence itself is revealed, you need to understand the mind that speaks it. Because this is not about a bad day, a heated argument, or emotional overwhelm. This is about a psychological condition that develops slowly, quietly, and often invisibly. According to Jung, every human being carries a shadow. The parts of the psyche we reject, deny, or refuse to acknowledge. Our jealousy, our resentment, our aggression, our capacity for cruelty. The shadow itself is not evil. Jung was clear about this. The shadow becomes dangerous only when it is unconscious. Most people try to remain good by burying their shadow deeper and deeper. They distract themselves. They rationalize. They avoid self-examination. But some people choose a different path. They do not suppress their shadow. They nurture it. When the shadow is fed instead of integrated, it grows. And eventually, it stops being something a person has. It becomes something a person is. Jung observed that when this happens, perception itself becomes distorted. The individual no longer sees others as separate human beings. Instead, they see projections, reflections of their own unresolved darkness. They begin to assign their rage to you, their insecurity to you, their shame to you. You become the container for everything they cannot tolerate within themselves. This is projection, and projection is never neutral. Over time, it hardens into something far more corrosive. Contempt. Contempt is not anger. Anger still recognizes the other person as human. Contempt does not. Contempt is the belief that another person is beneath you, unworthy of empathy, undeserving of dignity. Jung understood that contempt is a settled psychological position. Once it forms, moral restraint erodes. The person no longer feels bound by the invisible rules that prevent most people from causing deliberate harm. This is where intentional cruelty begins. And here is the critical insight Jung offered. People who cause deliberate harm do not see themselves as cruel. They see themselves as justified. The human psyche is remarkably skilled at self-deception, especially when it wants to cross moral boundaries without experiencing guilt. Long before the harm takes place, the mind begins preparing for it. The person builds a case against you internally. They reinterpret your words as attacks, your boundaries as disrespect, your silence as manipulation. They collect evidence selectively. They rehearse conversations where you are always the villain and they are always the victim. This is not memory. This is rehearsal. This rehearsal is essential. It allows them to commit harm without remorse. By the time the act occurs, they have already convinced themselves it was necessary, even deserved. And when the damage is finally done, something revealing often happens. The mask slips. The shadow speaks. The sentence itself is simple, almost casual. I knew exactly what I was doing to you. Or variations of it. I meant for this to happen. I wanted you to feel this. These words are not spoken in rage. They are spoken with clarity. And that clarity is what makes them chilling. This is not a confession. It is a declaration. The person is telling you that your pain was intentional, calculated, personal. Jung believed that when the shadow fully takes control, it no longer hides. It wants recognition. It wants dominance. Speaking this sentence is not about honesty. It is about power. When someone admits they hurt you intentionally, they are not relieved. They are satisfied. Jung observed that premeditated harm creates psychological investment. The person has spent emotional energy planning your suffering, imagining it, anticipating it. Your pain becomes the return on that investment. That is why they want you to know. They want you to understand that you were not spared, that your well-being was never a consideration. They want you to feel the weight of their control over your inner world. This creates what Jung called ego inflation, a false sense of superiority built on another person's suffering. But the danger does not end with the act itself. In many cases, it intensifies afterward, because now the psyche faces a problem. The person has crossed a moral line, and the ego cannot tolerate seeing itself as cruel, so it does something strategic. It reverses reality. This is where gaslighting begins. The same person who admitted they planned your pain will now minimize it, reframe it, question your reaction. They will tell you that you are too sensitive, too dramatic, too unforgiving. Jung called this psychic invasion, the attempt to colonize another person's inner world with a distorted version of events. If they can make you doubt your perception, they don't have to face their own. And here is something crucial to understand. If someone gaslights you after intentional harm, they are not finished with you. According to Jung, what follows is often driven by envy. Jung's work on resentment revealed a disturbing truth. Some people do not want resolution. They want superiority. They need you to remain broken so their internal narrative remains intact. Your healing threatens everything they told themselves to justify their behavior. If you recover, if you grow, if you regain clarity and strength, it proves their power was temporary. That realization is intolerable to someone driven by contempt. This is why they often return, quietly, subtly. A message disguised as concern, a comment meant to reopen wounds, a rumor designed to undermine your progress. Jung described resentment as poison that harms the one who drinks it. Your suffering was supposed to neutralize their inner turmoil. When it doesn't, panic sets in, and that is why your healing is not just personal. It is destabilizing to them. If you're still here, it means something in this reached you. Not on the surface, but internally. People who haven't lived through this kind of psychological harm don't recognize it when they hear it. They move on, but you stayed. And that tells me you're not here for comfort. You're here for clarity. This space exists for people who want to understand the mind, the shadow, and the hidden patterns shaping their lives. If that resonates, stay connected. Subscribe to Deep Psyche. And if this message gave language to something you couldn't explain before, liking the video helps this understanding reach others who need it. Let's continue. So what would Carl Jung tell you to do? He never advised revenge. Not because revenge is immoral,